Okay, so to follow on from my previous video about small block design, and this is the one that I designed using my 3D printed battery holders, and then there's the idea of using a whole bunch of these to build up small blocks into a large Powerwall. And so I'm just going to play around with them a bit here to get a feel for what the options are. So if I wanted it to be the same capacity as my 3D printed block, it would look like that. I'll put some batteries in. So if it was going to be exactly the same capacity as these, I would be looking at something like, I don't want to do anything too stupid because these batteries are all charged up. So I've got to make sure I get negative to negative. Alright. Negative. That's going to be okay. Alright. So that thing there is directly equivalent to that thing there. So a pack would look like that. And stands up quite nicely. I do fuses. So the way I do fuses is I'd have a strip of nickel strapping along the top here, and then I'd probably solder. Would it be smarter to solder to the top of the spring contact over to the strapping, or to have the strapping off to the side and solder the fuses from these tabs, from these little tabs that are these little tabs here, which may or may not be able to see. Either way, maybe. And then have connectors coming off the end, potentially banana plugs like that, or XT60s or something, Dean's connectors maybe. In terms of its physical stability, if you have them, you don't want that. That is kind of okay, because then the fuses are nice and obvious. You could have them sitting that way in a Powerwall, which would have them front on. You'd be able to look at them this way in a big huge Powerwall going up. On a shelf you could just have 7 of those. So this is sized, this has got enough cells so that if these were all 2000 milliamp hour cells, then 7 of these in series would create a 24 volt 1 kilowatt hour pack. So that's quite a nice chunk. So I'm using 2 4-way battery holders there and then 2 2-ways. It would actually, if I was going to go to the whole battery holder scenario, it would make more sense to go 8 and 8. So I'll just sellotape that up and see how that looks. So, if you had that, so that would work quite nicely as a slug. then I think you'd be looking more like a 1.5 kilowatt hour pack if you strung 7 of those together. And it's manageable. It's a nice handy hand-sized block. And it wouldn't be producing too much current that you couldn't still use my strapping stuff. Somehow you'd want to have some structural, possibly a sheet of thin plywood or something under that to keep that together. I wonder if I could get away with just wrapping this in duct tape to hold it all together. And I suspect the mould on these battery holders is not quite 90 degrees by the... is it? Or is it? I can't... possibly. Maybe? No. So some nice way of joining those that is quick and simple and elegant would be nice. Duct tape is not very elegant, but it is quick and simple. Interesting. But apart from that, it's quite a nice chunk. The other thing that I wondered about was noticing that, just kind of slipping out there, is whether you need like a big rubber band around each one of these. Big rubber band, oh, that just broke. So much for that. To make sure that these don't come out. Although a rubber band that's big enough to go around all of these isn't going to hold these middle ones in, because it'll have terrible, it'll have very poor pressure against the middle ones. Have great pressure on the ends. So there's that. But that's quite a nice chunk. I am inclined to think that this is a good way to go. It stands there nice and solid. That is kind of okay. No, that's better. So, how much is that? That is just under 6.5 inches for you Americans, or 16 centimetres for everyone else, which is fine. And what is it? It's 8 centimetres, or just a smidge over 3 inches. Okay. So my current, now that I see that in physical form, much as I love my design, it was so much better than my previous designs, and this is a lovely thing. What I do like about this is that it's much more universally copyable to everyone else out there who wants to do something similar. The problem with this is, sadly, not everyone has a 3D printer, so whatever design I come up with is not as useful to everyone else, whereas this is more useful to everyone else, and I like the idea of doing something that other people can copy and replicate. So I'm inclined to order a whole bunch of these. Now on Alibaba, so Alibaba, if you don't know, mostly I order stuff like these from AliExpress, and that's like eBay but based in China, and it's got lots of little Chinese retailers. Alibaba is the place where all the Chinese wholesalers hang out, and Chinese wholesalers and manufacturers hang out, and the company who makes or wholesales these is on Alibaba and sells them for something in the order of 50 cents each. So I'm thinking of ordering a couple of hundred and then build up oodles of those. I'm almost tempted to build up one of these as well, just to see how long that takes, and so that I can compare the two systems. I spent so long on this design, and it's so nice. It's got the connectors partly moulded in, and anyway. So this, I think, that's interesting, that one keeps on coming out. I wonder if, yeah, that's because it juts out. So what you do find is that every now and then you get some pairs that have a huge gap between the two cells. And the worst I've ever seen is this one here, which is just ridiculous, the amount of space. So that's a normal one, no gap, and that's this one here. That's just wasted space in that particular cell. Kind of bizarre. And so these ones are annoying, problematic. Because they jut out, not nearly as tidy, but their capacity is still fine, so I should be pragmatic and say it's the capacity I care about, not the lining up, not the aesthetics. The aesthetics is not my highest priority, but I do want it to be tidy. So that's looking pretty good. So the next thing, working out how to strap it up, I should spend some time thinking about that, and some way of physically connecting them, the two pair sets together, so that they don't do that, because that's a bit naff. And one option is something stiff in between, but what would that be? What can I use that I've got that's not going to cost me any money, and it's not going to be a huge amount of work cutting out lots of square somethings, rectangles. So I need to work out how to join these, and then I need to work out exactly how to do the fusing strapping for this lot. More thinking required, but yeah, I think that's going to work. I think that's going to be okay. I could, if I wanted to. The other scenario is just to, probably the cleanest scenario would just be to do single pairs like that have 2 of those, 7 of those in series. Yeah, that would also work. One of the other things that's just occurred to me is this sits nicely on the table when there's nothing soldered on this bottom plane. So ideally this bottom plane should not have the strapping on it, because that would make it wobble about, which is not nearly so nice. So if I could have the strapping off to the side, possibly 2 straps, how would that work? Possibly a piece of strapping, where is a piece of strapping? Possibly, so that's the bottom, possibly something like that soldered all the way along, so that they're all joined at the nether end and they're not interfering with the base. That actually works quite nicely. Oh, that slots in there very nicely. I wonder how, and when you put batteries in it, it puts even more pressure on that joint. You could almost get away with not even having to solder it, because if the connection between the battery and that connector is good enough to create a decent connection, then that connection should also be good. That's better. Yeah, that does work. That's definitely nothing. Also nothing. Also nothing. Oh, there we go. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So, that is actually quite a good electrical connection, and I haven't even had to solder it. So that's quite nice. That looks like man, so that's the negative terminal sorted. So then the question is how to do the fuse end. So if you imagine that is the fuse end, and where's my this is really nicely held in. Ooh, that's good. That's a good solution. Alright, so now I've got to figure out the fuse end, and one option is just to run the strapping over there and then have a fuse soldered from here to there, from here to there, and it's done. That works. So I've bent these up, and if I bend them up a reasonable amount, there's 3 millimeters gap between them, which is sufficient. And then double-sided tape that down, and then just fuse wire from there to there, and there to there. That would work. I think that would work fine. And is there any other... The only not perfect thing is you've got these little tabs jutting up. They're not flush, which is not quite as nice. You could bend them all the way around, and then they'd be slightly lower profile. Maybe. But that should work. Yeah. The other design scenario that I had thought about was just to have them as, plug these back in, try and not to get it the wrong way around, not that it matters. The other design option is to have them in a block like that, just like that, and those could be riveted down onto a piece of plywood, and then you have another one here, and so on. I did a rough design for that scenario, where it's about the right size too. You'd have strapping on the negative end there, and then another block here with its strapping on the negative end, and then you'd have the fuse wire coming from that tab to the next bus bar and back to the other pair, and you do a bunch of pairs. I've done, instead of doing instead of doing 12 individual little fuse strips, I've saved myself 6 soldering jobs by making them into loops. So effectively that's 2 fuses, but I'm just saving myself a tiny amount of time times lots of solders equals some time. So that this design would produce what I'm calling a power shelf instead of a power wall. So it looks like that. That's 7 cells in 7 groups in series. So it's what is it? P24 in parallel, 7 in series, which is again that's equivalent to one of these, but it has a much smaller height. The height of that is only 4 centimeters, or just under 2 inches. So that would be the other scenario. And in this design scenario, you'd have 1 or more shelves, and it's not too long. It's what is it? It is 700 millimeters long, or 70 centimeters, 700 millimeters by 26 centimeters, 260 millimeters. That is 10 inches. So what is it? 10 inches by 28 inches. You could stack a whole bunch of those pretty quickly to get each shelf would be about 1 kilowatt hour. So then you stack as many as you need to get more kilowatt hours. The nice thing about this over having the sandwich idea is the back-to-back sandwich is that you can rivet this onto a piece of plywood, and this whole thing is a single unit. You're not moving these around at all. This kind of assumes that you're going to be slotting them into some cupboard, some shelving system. So this would require slightly more time to get to build the shelving system, and if you're shoving things in and out, then you're going to have good connectors, and there's a potential for problems. Connectors are always a problem, whereas if this is all just like that, you've got one set of connectors at the end of the shelf, and that's it. That's your 1 kilowatt hour. So I do like this scenario as well, and it's really, conceptually, it's really simple, having everything just laid out as a single slab. My gut feeling is that this is a nicer, simpler setup. There, that is the whole thing. So if you can imagine 7 of those, and then you'd have a negative there, positive there, running off to some connector, and you'd be done. At the moment, my instinct is to build this first, and then what? Maybe that's enough to be thinking about. So I should order a whole bunch of these, three of these times 7 is 21. So if I order 100, I can do 5 kilowatts. 5 kilowatt hours. 5 shelves. Okay. Well, thanks for listening to me ramble on. Cogitate, consider, think. Let me know what you think. Catch you next time. Cheers.